I started the Tenderness Tour in 1989. I've been doing it for 28 years. I've traveled over 5,000 miles by wheelchair, raising money for children's organizations around the world. That first tour was a 41-day, 1,086-mile wheelchair trip around the border of Indiana, where I traveled alone by wheelchair with a backpack on on the wheelchair and $20 in my pocket. And it was kind of a desperation that kind of started all of this. I had experienced just about everything that you could possibly experience in terms of loss, and really kind of set out to see if there were good people in the world. And so I traveled. I traveled for 41 days and 1,000 miles, and what amazed me was that I never went without a place to stay. I never went without a meal. I could be in the middle of farmland, in Indiana, and someone would show up when I needed water or if I needed help. It was the most amazing, life-changing experience of my life. And, I came back from that knowing that there were good people in the world, knowing that there was always hope, knowing that I could be, out in the middle of nowhere, feeling completely alone, and someone could show up and provide me the support that I needed. And so I came back from that first tour, and I knew that I had a life mission to share that sense of hope and to do it on a very personal level. One of the favorite comparisons or things I like to say is that, when you travel as I do at 2 to 3 miles an hour, you don't get to avoid people. You know, you look people in the eyes, you have to encounter them. And it doesn't matter if you're scared of them, it doesn't matter if they're different from you, you get to deal with them one-to-one. And that's kind of a really cool way to experience life. And so I've tried to keep living life at 2 to 3 miles an hour. And so since that first tour, I've kept wheeling at least once a year. Sometimes there's several tours in a year. Sometimes they're 5-mile tours. Sometimes they're, cross-state tours. I've toured all over the country. And along the way, I kind of found that I enjoyed the creative side of activism. I enjoyed having to find creative ways to make a difference. Or, when a mayor wouldn't want to see me when I arrived in their town, I would show up at their house. I would do whatever it took. And so I kind of tapped into that creative spirit. I had been a theater minor in college, and so I started using the arts. I started writing plays, writing poetry. When I got back from that first tour, I had a lot of my own healing to do. It wasn't like suddenly I was happy. I had to deal with all of the baggage that I'd had from life. And so, I used to say that first tour, I had 1,000 miles worth of rage to work out. And since then, I've just been expressing that hope in different ways. This event, this straight out of Cowan, for me, was an opportunity, number one, to support someone who has used his creative side to make the world a better place for a long time. And to kind of expand on what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing now, which is, I've been given the gift of hope, and now you have to give it out. You can't just keep it inside. You have to give it to others. And so, I'm pretty fortunate to be in a place in my life where financially I can sponsor events, and I can sponsor short films, and I can put together things, and I'm really good behind the scenes. And so it was a great way to support someone who had a dream to do a DVD and to film a show, and then who came up with the idea to have it benefit a project that I wanted to do, which is to create this heart of indie. I really wanted to create this space in Indianapolis where we would remember child victims of violence. I'm very aware how blessed in addition to being a sexual abuse survivor, I have a disability. I have spina bifida. I've greatly outlived my life expectancy, and I live every day with this sense of gratitude and awe. And so it's just, I've reached this point where I want to give that back, and I'm in a place where I can do that. And so we kind of came up with the idea of, let's not only do this, let's put Straight Outta Cowan together. Let's support, Rick Garrett's project and his dream of doing this. And then he came up with the idea of having it support the Tenderness Tour, which was new for me. Usually the Tenderness Tour always raises money for other organizations, but he knew, because we've been friends for a long time, that I'd had this project I did on the side for a long time called 1 Million Acres, where I track child victims of violence, and I tell their stories on a website, on the Tenderness Tour website. And I had always wanted to bring that to life in a physical way so that we could have sort of an urban healing space. And I actually found a labyrinth in Oklahoma that was in a heart shape, and I thought that would be perfect. And so we came up with the idea to use this project to bring one of my dreams to life. And I think that's the beauty of the Tenderness Tour, because it promotes this circle of hope. It's about having a tribe that you can depend on, and that you can empower one another, and that you can love one another, and it works beautifully. And Rick and his wife Holly have supported the Tenderness Tour in a variety of ways over the years, offering their time and their talents, their music. I produced a benefit CD called "Give a Girl a Chance," and they donated a song to that. And every time I come up with a really crazy idea, they tend to support it. So, and I'm really good at crazy ideas.
So, we both have a background in ministry. And I think we have both come to realize that the best ministries, the most effective ministries, are non-traditional and take place outside of the church walls. Can you kind of address that a little bit?
I think both of us, what I think we do really well is sort of a living ministry. And I think that, I've served churches. I believe you've served churches as well. And it's always it feels very confining to me. I think people can worship spaces and buildings and things. And for me, it's about the community, and it's about, building one another up and finding, new ways to love one another, and to I know that both Rick and I have had that experience of having people come up to us and say, if you had a church, I'd come to that church because you're not like any minister I've ever known. And I think that's just the highest, most awesome compliment in the world, because I don't want to be like most. I want to be different. I want to be someone who, shows up in difficult times. I spent 10 years working in an emergency room doing crisis intervention. And I love that. I love the idea of being there for people at their lowest point. And for me, ministry is not a job. It's not an occupation. It's not showing up to a building. I love preaching, but it's not preaching. It's hopefully the way I live my life.
It's been great.
It's been awesome. It's been a great evening for me. It's been a dream that I've wanted to do for a long, long time. And I hate to say this, but I'm ready to do it again. I'm sorry. In a year or so, not tomorrow.
I will say, we only have the space for another hour, so I'm sorry.